The Gaza Strip, a densely populated Palestinian territory, has witnessed numerous cycles of violence and ceasefires over the years. Each ceasefire offers a temporary reprieve from conflict, but lasting peace remains elusive. The underlying issues fueling the conflict remain largely unaddressed. The history of Gaza is marked by intense fighting and fragile truces. Ceasefires provide respite but are often temporary solutions. Political, economic, and social issues continue to simmer, creating a volatile environment. The international community plays a significant role in mediating ceasefires. These efforts are crucial but have not yet led to sustainable peace. A comprehensive political solution is needed for lasting peace. Despite challenges, the pursuit of peace in Gaza remains paramount. The most recent escalation of violence in Gaza was triggered by a series of events, including tensions over land rights in East Jerusalem, and clashes between Israeli police and Palestinian protesters at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. The situation quickly deteriorated, leading to rocket fire from Gaza into Israel and retaliatory airstrikes by the Israeli military. The escalation of violence had a devastating impact on the civilian population in Gaza. The densely populated enclave, already grappling with a dire humanitarian situation due to a long-standing blockade, faced a barrage of airstrikes that targeted residential areas, infrastructure, and medical facilities. The United Nations reported a sharp increase in civilian casualties, including women and children. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza reached a critical point as the conflict intensified. Hospitals were overwhelmed with casualties, essential supplies dwindled, and access to clean water and electricity became increasingly limited. International aid organizations struggled to provide assistance amid the ongoing violence and restrictions on movement. The escalating violence and deepening humanitarian crisis in Gaza sparked international condemnation and calls for an immediate ceasefire. The United Nations Security Council held emergency meetings to address the situation, while world leaders engaged in diplomatic efforts to de-escalate the conflict and pave the way for a negotiated truce. The international community played a crucial role in mediating a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Egypt, sharing a border with Gaza, led the negotiations. Key players included the United States, the United Nations, and Qatar. The process was complex, with both sides under pressure. Mediators worked tirelessly to bridge divides. The focus was on securing a ceasefire and addressing humanitarian needs. After intense negotiations, a ceasefire was reached. Egypt brokered the agreement, reopening border crossings for aid. The international community welcomed the ceasefire. The ceasefire brought relief to Gaza, Israel, and globally. However, the truce was fragile, with both sides expressing reservations. The international community pledged to monitor and support the ceasefire. Section 4. Terms and implementation. A fragile truce takes hold. The ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas included a number of key provisions aimed at ending the violence and addressing the humanitarian situation in Gaza. These provisions included a cessation of hostilities, the reopening of border crossings to allow for the flow of humanitarian aid and essential goods, and the launch of indirect talks between Israeli and Palestinian officials to discuss longer-term arrangements. The implementation of the ceasefire agreement was closely monitored by international observers, including representatives from the United Nations and Egypt. The observers played a crucial role in verifying compliance with the terms of the truce and facilitating communication between the parties to address any violations or concerns. Despite some initial challenges and sporadic incidents, the ceasefire largely held, bringing an end to the most recent round of fighting. The reopening of border crossings allowed for the delivery of much-needed humanitarian aid to Gaza, providing some relief to the beleaguered population. The ceasefire, while fragile, represented a significant step towards de-escalation and created a window of opportunity for diplomatic efforts to address the underlying issues fueling the conflict. The international community urged both sides to seize this opportunity to engage in meaningful dialogue and work towards a more sustainable peace. Section 5. The Trump Administration, a shift in U.S. policy. The Trump administration's approach to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict marked a departure from previous U.S. administrations. President Donald Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and move the U.S. embassy there was met with condemnation from the Palestinian leadership and much of the international community. The Trump administration's peace plan, unveiled in early 2020, was heavily criticized by the Palestinians for being biased in favor of Israel. The plan proposed a two-state solution, but with significant concessions from the Palestinian side, including limited sovereignty over a future Palestinian state and the annexation of Israeli settlements in the West Bank. The Trump administration's policies towards the Israeli-Palestinian conflict were seen by many as undermining the prospects for a negotiated two-state solution. The Palestinian Authority cut off all ties with the Trump administration following the U.S. Embassy move, and the peace plan was rejected outright by the Palestinian leadership. The Trump administration's legacy on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict remains a subject of debate. While some argue that the administration's unconventional approach shook up the status quo and created new possibilities, others contend that its policies further entrenched the existing stalemate and made a two-state solution even more elusive. Section 6. Obstacles to peace, the path forward. The path to a lasting peace between Israel and the Palestinians is fraught with obstacles. One of the most significant challenges is the lack of trust between the two sides, fueled by decades of conflict, broken promises, and mutual suspicion. The issue of settlements remains a major stumbling block in peace negotiations. Israel's continued expansion of settlements in the West Bank, considered illegal under international law, is seen by the Palestinians as encroaching on land they claim for a future state. The status of Jerusalem, a city holy to both Jews and Muslims, is another highly sensitive issue. Both sides claim Jerusalem as their capital, making any compromise on this issue extremely difficult. The divided Palestinian political landscape, with the West Bank under the control of the Palestinian Authority and Gaza ruled by Hamas, presents a further complication. Reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas is seen as essential for any future peace agreement to be sustainable. Section 7. A hope for lasting peace, collective action and shared responsibility. Despite the formidable challenges, the pursuit of peace in the Middle East remains an imperative. The human cost of the conflict, particularly for the civilian population, is simply too high to bear. A lasting solution requires a renewed commitment from all parties to engage in meaningful dialogue and work towards a future where Israelis and Palestinians can live side by side in peace and security. The international community has a crucial role to play in supporting the peace process. This includes providing humanitarian assistance to those affected by the conflict, promoting dialogue and reconciliation between the parties, and holding all sides accountable for their actions. A lasting peace requires addressing the root causes of the conflict, including the occupation, the settlements, and the denial of Palestinian self-determination. A just and equitable solution must be based on international law and respect for the human rights of both Israelis and Palestinians. The journey towards peace will be long and arduous, but it is a journey that must be undertaken. The alternative, a perpetual cycle of violence and suffering, is simply unacceptable. The international community must work together with Israelis and Palestinians to create a future where peace and justice prevail.